Total chaos. Well, he will, I guess. I'm not quite sure what the obsession with wearing night clothes as the bishop. The orchestra pit. I think he's trying to say yes, he will. Just in case you guys didn't realize it, I think that guy's point was yes, he will. Well, in case you guys don't realize it, you're now listening to the sound of the revival hour. I normally come to you as a trusty sidekick, but I guess I'm at the helm tonight. Get your hot cocoa together, your coffee. We're gonna have a nice little fireside radio moment. Play that organ, brother. This is the hour of power. I'm here to announce this is the first church plant of Ichabod. And we're going to call this one Everlasting Gripe. So pull up with your lattes, your matchas, and we're going to have at it. We're going to get into some aphorisms and get into a little thought for the night, okay? We got to go into all the world and preach this counter-apologetic gospel. We're really trying to get people to the point where they realize and wake up to the reality that holding up these books on certain pedestals isn't the way to go. Well, it's interesting that I'm saying holding these books. I'm talking about religious texts because I'm following that statement up with introducing our aphorism for the night. Tonight's aphorism, it comes from a man named Christian Morgenstern. He was born in Germany in 1871, and he died in 1914. Today's aphorism reads a little something like this. The most intelligence is wasted on the greatest foolishness. I'll say it again. The most intelligence is wasted on the greatest foolishness. But that was a good way to kick off Everlasting Gripe. If you have ever pondered, and, you know, I for one, I think that this aphorism is using hyperbole. We should lead with that idea. He's speaking in hyperbole. It's not to say that great intelligence isn't used on other things, but a lot of intelligence is wasted on foolishness. And what better place to begin with thinking about that than just thinking about religion? Think of how many really intelligent people. I guess that might have been my problem with some of the new atheists. Is often in the process of debunking Christianity in many of these atheists that arose in the mid 2000s in America, they collapsed the foolishness of religion into just, how would I say this? Hmm. It's almost like they the foolish ideas of religion can be held by people who have great intelligence. And I think some of them made that point. I believe it was Christopher Hitchens who remarked on, what's the guy's name who wrote The Language of God? Um, his name is eluding me right now. But I believe Christopher Hitchens, they did give props to certain geneticists and stuff. So I don't want to say that they didn't give uh, due props to, Christian thinkers. But often I feel like the idea, when it was Francis Collins, that's who, when while debunking religion, you can get so focused on the foolishness of the ideas that you somehow collapse the ideas into the entire person who holds the ideas. And it's important as counter apologists to separate the two out. Because, while they may be saying very idiotic things, that does not mean that they themselves are utter idiots. You can be a great mathematician, you can be a great scientist, a great geneticist, as Francis Collins is, and also hold to really, really foolish ideas. And actually, as this aphorism indicates, wasting intelligence on really bad ideas. I mean, you needn't look any further than a person like Thomas Aquinas to see that. You have brilliant people. Think of John Owen. You have people, and this is a principle you can draw out from this and apply it to any number of things. When you look at the great racists of history, some of them have quite a bit of intelligence. That's why it's important. One of the skills that we learn as adults, hopefully you learned it by the time you're an adult, is the ability to separate bad ideas from, to be able to parse a person's bad ideas and separate them out from maybe something they've contributed positive. I in a culture that's quick to cancel the entirety of a person out, and I know a lot of alt-right people complain about cancel culture, so I don't want to be perceived as that, but there is a tendency these days to, when you find out someone has done something really bad or thought something really bad, to just cancel everything that this person has ever contributed. And while I can see the utility in that, I do think that there is some sense in being able to in a nuanced way, eat the meat and spit out the bones, so to speak. I mean, there are going to be so many things in life that you encounter where, human beings are flawed, and you're going to always encounter things where if you decide, hey, I have to discard everything that this person has ever contributed because they were a great racist or because they believe in, some mythological religion or whatever, you'll find yourself with very few things to hold on to. So I guess the way I would take that aphorism, and the idea that the most intelligence is wasted on the greatest foolishness, the way I would apply that and maybe find a nugget is to say that, well, recognizing intelligence that maybe it's like the intelligence that you're wasting on foolishness, you don't run out of that intelligence when you use it in other areas of life. So many of the people who are forwarding really silly religious ideas, maybe in the public discourse, might have very important things to offer to genetics or something, Francis Collins. And it's important to not dismiss the entirety of a person on the basis of some really bad ideas they have, maybe. Obviously this is left to the discussion. I'm spending far too long on the aphorism. So I feel we should get into what I want to discuss. I'm going to keep this one shortest. I'm going to talk a little about imputed righteousness. Now, anybody who's familiar with the doctrine of justification, they know it works something like this. Sin is essentially considered to be a debt a person owes. They've committed a crime. In fact, let me see. They're not only a debtor, they're a criminal. So that's probably the better way of wording it. They've committed a crime. The crime is sin. I should make it plural. They've committed sins, right? They are a justice requires that they are punished for the crimes. Now enters the substitute or the mediator. I shouldn't say the mediator. I want to confuse people. Enters in a substitute. Substitute in this case being Jesus Christ. He ends up bearing the penalty, the cost, the penalty for the crime. He bears it himself instead of the person who was guilty of the crime. So this is why they call it penal substitutionary atonement, because instead of you being punished for your crime, for your sins, he's punished for them. And in this exchange, not only is he punished for your crime, but you are also afforded his clean record. So on top of being able to escape punishment for your own crime, you are given a exemplary record of righteousness from the substitute. So this is the idea of scapegoating and whatever. This is the same kind of idea. And the thought I have for tonight is that because there is no God, and I guess I'm going to state it in an argument form, because there is no God, there is therefore no substitutionary atonement. And the only imputation of righteousness that is happening is coming from human beings. So this is how it works. You have people who have their flaws as human beings who believe in this fictional character of Jesus, who's this righteous person who never did anything wrong. And other believers impute the righteousness of Christ to other people who say they're believers. So someone will say, okay, what's so alarming about this? What's so notable about this? Why would you make a short discussion about this? Well, this is how it works. There's nothing happening on an ontological level in terms of sins being forgiven and righteousness being transferred or sins being punished on. What is happening is here in the real world, when a person realizes you are a believer, and this is the reason why this is so appropriate for an opening, maybe I guess our inaugural episode of Everlasting Gripe, is that I am J-Wit Protection. Anybody who knows me from Ichabod's channel would know me as Jehovah's Witness Protection. It all started as a joke of me saying I was in witness protection, and that's why I was going to be anonymous, but I was going to call myself Jehovah's Witness, just as a kind of play on the term witness protection. But obviously that led to a lot of confusion, a lot of people thinking I was a former Jehovah's Witness. But one might ask themselves, why is he anonymous? Why isn't he showing his face? And not only would that be the case that one might do that, it has happened many times. Why am I in witness protection? Well, I think at the heart of the witness protection program I am in is this idea of imputed righteousness, not the imputed righteousness of some fake deity to sinners, but the righteousness that gets imputed to people from other people. This is how it works. We live in a society that's populated and dominated by at least professing Christians. I mean, it's changing. The demographics are changing gradually, but it's still there. And what happens when publicly you're known to be a Christian, or I'm not saying that J-Wit is known to be a Christian, but I'm saying maybe if he was ever thought to be a Christian, he has a certain benefit and just using J-Wit as an example, but you can use any person. who lives in a society where you get the benefit of the doubt when people begin to think that you're a Christian. Immediately, they ascribe certain virtues. This is why the shock appears in the headlines when some religious leader falls into some moral failure. The reason why it's alarming to people is precisely because they don't expect said religious leader to have such moral failures, because they expect that a person who's a religious leader they live by a higher standard of ethics. Well, it also works in a sense where you can be in a society, say for instance, you're interacting with somebody, they find out you're a Christian, and you immediately get the imputed righteousness of of a book to you from this person, even though they might not know you. And they'll find themselves relating to you in a much friendlier way and assuming a lot of things about your character just based on the shared belief system. I think perhaps I'll pull up, let me see if I can pull up a passage here. We'll discuss this, and I'll just call this quits, just make this a real popcorn comment type of show. Pull this, see if I can get this on the screen so people can look at it along with me. Well, while I'm getting that together, let's see if I can. So there's a biblical, I would say there's biblical warrant for that, because the Bible it very much encourages people to treat believers with an exception in terms of we'll look into the passage right now. I can just get this thing up here on the screen. Let's see if you guys can see this. This is from Galatians. You guys can see this. So in Galatians 6, verse, I think we will look at verse 10. So you guys can see the whole thing. Because I'll read through the whole thing, right? From verse 7 down. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we don't, or we do not give up. So then, so based on the idea of reaping for doing good and not sowing to the flesh, but sowing to the Spirit. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are the household of faith. So he makes an exception. He's like, do good, but make it your business to make sure you're doing good to those of the household of faith. And what that sets up in the mind of the believer often is this exceptionalism when it comes to how they interact with other believers. And you'll see it's like they are a fraternity. They treat each other in a more familiar way than they would other people. I mean, they call each other brothers and sisters, mothers, etc. So this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about the imputation. Because why are they doing this? They believe that you have believed in this substitutionary atonement, which results in the imputation of righteousness. But not only that, they've imputed certain, I guess you could say, stellar character traits to you by virtue of you just saying that you are a believer in this shared myth. And that has currency in our society, in a Christian society, particularly wherever you live in the world. This has a certain amount of currency. And so, what is actually going on when we're talking about imputed righteousness isn't something in the clouds, isn't something ontological. We're talking about the ability for people to navigate in a society um, with not just neutrality, but an assumed goodness. This guy is a good guy. He's reliable. And this is why time and time again you find people being let down by entrusting their kids to some believer. And next thing you know, something really horrible has happened. And trusting their wife, and just the list goes on. So what I'm saying is, um, on the other side of that is as atheists, what we'll find is many who are outspoken will find that they have the exact opposite. Rather than having an imputed righteousness, you have imputed unrighteousness, where people will look at you and think that maybe you're the worst kind of person. And for those who don't believe this is a possibility, believe me, well, I guess I'm saying just believe me on the sake of it being my word, but it is a thing. It's an impossible. Depending on what a person's view of an atheist or an agnostic or skeptic is, they will perhaps think the worst of you prior to getting to know you. So you don't walk in there with this general neutrality or even imputed righteousness that maybe the Christian might have, but instead you're starting off at a disadvantage in the person's eyes that maybe you can work your way out of as they get to know you better. So yes, this is part of the reason why some atheists have chosen to remain anonymous online. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think about it. I don't want to belabor this point too much today. Hope to get around to dealing with some videos, very much the way we used to deal on exit strategy. But let's start with this one idea. Perhaps you guys want to drop some comments on the thought in the comment section. And yeah, as I kind of dip out of here, we'll roll out and hopefully you guys can hear what's going on here. So yeah, I'll see you soon. All right.